1/3 of Texas's abortion clinics are expected to shut down after the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans ruled that the hospitals, or the clinics I should say, do need to get admitting privileges from hospitals. Now, earlier this week we reported the great news that a federal judge had decided that they did not have to get admitting privileges because he found that to be unconstitutional and an undue burden. However, after that happened, the Texas Attorney General filed an emergency appeal, and the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals voted in his favor. However, the reason why they did that is because this is not a closed case in any way. This will probably go to higher courts, and they will make a ruling on it. But in the meantime, they will allow the current law to take effect the way that it has been written.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad. It's a bad decision. But you're right, because there's a dispute about whether that's a medically necessary issue. But what I hate most about these stories is that, just the lying that goes on, and then the non-questioning of the lying. This is a story from, I don't know who wrote this original story, where we got it from. Might be an Associated Press. Associated Press. But Greg Abbott, who's the Texas Attorney General and is running for governor and shepherded this law through. The unanimous decision is a vindication of the careful deliberation by the Texas legislature.
Not true.
To craft a law to protect the health and safety of Texas women. That's not why you passed the law. No one thinks it's why you passed the law. It's just a thing people say, and it gets reported. And I get it. I'm not even going to knock the AP. It's too standard. That's how it was done. You got to report what the guy said. But they did it because they don't want any women to have abortions. And it's nothing to do with protecting the health and safety of women. Nothing at all to do with it. And these guys permitted to lie, and the story just goes on, and that's it.
What's really interesting here is the process, too, because so they passed the law, and the district court said, no, this law is unconstitutional. So then they appealed. The circuit court didn't rule on the merits of the case. They were just ruling on the issue of whether, while it's pending the appeal, these laws should be in effect or not. It's very interesting to me that they ruled that they should, and here's why. Because this is, abortions. Obviously, timing is a big issue. If you're not allowed to have an abortion today, well, if you have to wait 8 months, then it's a moot point. So they win kind of by default through a process. It just seems unfair because usually courts rule on these kind of petitions based on what they think is a likely outcome of the case in the long run. And I guess their take is, well, the district court's ruling is going to be reversed.
And also keep in mind, while these decisions get made, these clinics have to shut down.
Yeah,
1/3 of the clinics in Texas are going to be gone, about 12 of them, I believe. And what do you think is going to happen? Let's say the higher courts decide in their favor and they can reopen, right? Well, some of them aren't going to be able to reopen.
Yeah,
it's going to take a tremendous amount of resources and funding just in order to do that. So all these women are going to be hurt by this. I think that the federal judge made the right ruling initially when he said that this was an undue burden. It wasn't put in place to protect women. And it's just unbelievable how ruthless officials are in Texas, because they were ruthless when it came to the case of Wendy Davis and her successful filibuster, and they're ruthless when it comes to these court rulings. And I don't think they're going to stop.
And they got the law passed through a special session. It wasn't really an open discussion. They tried to ram it through, and Wendy Davis stopped it for a short period of time, but eventually they got it through.
But then she scratched her back during the filibuster. That was strike one. Right. You guys are lawyers. So, who decides this now? Because they didn't rule on the merits of the case. So is the Fifth Circuit going to rule on the merits of the case?
Yes.
Or so the same circuit that allowed the law to continue will come back and hear the case.
Well, that's exactly why I was going to say. It appears from the way that they've done this temporary ruling that the Fifth Circuit is going to make it permanent ruling in favor of Texas.
Right, and then the Planned Parenthood will appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it's an abortion case, and they probably won't take it.
And in which case it'll stand, in which case a third of the clinics in Texas will be permanently shut unless they can somehow figure out a way to do these admitting privileges, which a lot of the private hospitals don't want to do, either for religious reasons because they're religious hospitals, or they get protested even if they give these doctors who also do abortions admitting privileges in a hospital so they can work at a clinic. And so it's bad news. It looks like in Texas this might stay for a long, long time. And earlier in the week we were celebrating that the earlier federal judge had made the right ruling. A progressive victory lasted about 3 days in Texas.